Hello, everyone. Once again to the A4Q World Congress, day 3 in the middle already. It has been amazing, amazing speakers, amazing content, and we will have now, and I'm very proud and I'm very pleased to introduce the president of the ISTQB and the president of the CFTL, Mr. Olivier Deneau. With
Thank you
more
very
than,
much. I'm sorry.
sorry.
I was just thanking you.
You can in a second. With more than 20 years professional experience, he will today talk about artificial intelligence, and with great pleasure, I will hand over to you now.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. We are going to speak now about artificial intelligence, but not the artificial intelligence from the technical perspective or from the even the testing perspective per se in the technical sense of the term, but we're going to speak about artificial intelligence in terms of ethics and what the ethical problem behind artificial intelligence might be. So, let's take the first step of the journey and discuss about ethics. Ethics is actually the study of what is considered to be morally right or wrong. And this is just a set of beliefs about what we think that is right or what we think that is wrong. And it's related to standards like behavior, good or bad, fairness, honesty, well, these kind of things that each and every person's believe in, rather than to laws or religion or these kind of things. This moral principle that governs a person's behavior or the conducting of an activity are especially depending on where you sit in the world and when you sit in the world, as we will see later in this presentation. So this is something that is quite much evolving over time and quite well evolving depending on where you are. Basically speaking, this is not something that is very new to the testing and to the testers, because long ago, when we're not talking about artificial intelligence or agility or these kind of things in the good old times of well, were they good or old? Well, old for sure, good not sure. When the old times of testing, you were confronted as a tester to test data sets, and you're still confronted today to a bunch of test data sets. This is what we use to test pieces of software, because most of the software are interacting with data, aren't they? And basically speaking, apart from the RGPD and these kind of privacy regulations that are enforced these days, most of the data were not anonymized. And still, in many places, these data are not yet anonymized. So what happens is that testers are confronted to very sensitive and personal information, whether it is the private phone number of, well, somebody like your ex-wife, or the salary of your neighbor, or, well, depending on where you work and which sort of data you're confronted to, you get this sort of information. It's not a problem on its own. Well, it is already a privacy problem, some might say. It's not a problem of its own unless you do something bad or good with that. And this is where the moral principle is just activated. Another angle from the ethical perspective and testers is whether you would like or not to work in a military project or security project, something to help the police, or but there are many other angles, like do you want to work for a pharmaceutical industry because you're convinced that ecology is more important? Or, well, these kind of considerations are just hitting everyday's life of a tester. If we're talking about security, we also have another aspects of ethics, which is called the ethical hackers or the ethical hacking, where you have these people that just try to get into your code, penetration test, pen testing, these kind of things, just to improve it and make it less vulnerable some sort of way. But doing so, they just attack your piece of code or servers or infrastructure or whatever. So this is also another perspective. If you look at the way we handle IT, in these old times, when a piece of software failed, traditional software, what you got very often from the developer side, well, it works on my machine. And my reply to that one is always the same. Oh, are you planning to sell your machine then? Because, yeah, users need it, and it doesn't work on mine. When it comes to AI, we have exactly the same sort of attitude or excuse, but it's tuned in a little bit different way. It's just a question of version, it's a question of technology, or it's a question of time. When, for instance, you have a Tesla car, autonomous drive, that is crashing into the flank of a truck because it confused that with the horizon. It was very, how to say, bright day, so lots of sun, and the car was white, and the Tesla crashed in there and killed the, well, non-driver, because the person was actually not driving. What was said is, first of all, the statistical argument, which is, oh, it's only 1 out of 1,000,000 kilometers or something. Okay, crash happens with normal cars as well. That's true. And second, it was, oh, but if the car just had the new LiDAR and this software version and a little bit more edgy and sharp kind of recognition, that wouldn't have happened. But it will be fixed on the next version. It's always fun to me when I hear that, until I just realized that I could be that non-driver on the Tesla car. Basically, human beings are fascinated with AI or by AI for a long time. It's just a Hollywood fascination. And you know, this kind of strange behavior of all these computers, when you believe that they can solve each and every problem in the world. You have this R2-D2 in Star Wars, fixing any sort of problem and having an answer to every kind of question you might have. More less fantasy, let's say, or closer to us, we have these AI-driven systems like Hello Google, Siri, Cortana, Alexa, just name the disease, that are helping us, and I really mean it, really helping us in everyday life. You just ask them, okay, what is the nearest restaurant, and they can find it for you very easily, because they have the data and they know the road. You don't. Of course, we have the other side of the coin, which is the HAL 9000, the AVA or Terminator stuff, when these artificial intelligence just get berserk and want to destroy human. We'll come to that later. Yeah, let's just Alexa laugh a little bit on that one. But apart from this Hollywood fascination, we can have a look at how human would consider working with AI. And basically, AI is already present in many systems. I mean, IT systems around us. AI is present in credit, insurance, HR. Well, you can have an interview where the first interview is done by an AI today. Medicine, detecting cancers and these kind of things, or tumors. Well, supply chain, just name them. And one big study was run in 2019, asking 8,000 employees, managers, HR leaders over 10 countries, if they would be happy to work with an AI around them as a coworker. And 53% said, well, quite enthusiastic and optimistic about having an AI. That's all fine. But then you come to the real interesting figures, when 64% of the audience or the respondees would say that they would trust a robot more than their manager. Tells a lot about our management styles, isn't it? And 36% think that robots are better than managers at providing unbiased information. Oh, that's interesting, and we will come to that later. And then you have the second aspect, you know, the HAL 9000 effect, which is 71% would say that security concerns would prevent them from using an AI at work. So we are very confident about AI, but still a bit, you know, reluctant. Very quickly, because you'll probably hear the story, and you probably heard that story many times. What is AI? AI is a program that can sense, reason, act, and adapt. And you have subcategories of AIs like machine learning. I'm getting very, very simplistic here. Machine learnings are algorithms whose performance is improving when they are exposed to data over time. So they're learning from data. And you have a subcategory that is called deep learning, and this is where you come to neuronal networks and all these kind of high technology stuff, where they get more data and they get more accurate kind of reasoning, basically. So that's a vast amount of data. We'll come to that. Coming from these, I would just start my journey with regards to ethics, talking about unsupervised machine learning, because you've probably heard a couple of speakers before me saying that we are working in a very complex IT environment, and more complex over time, because we have integrated environment, distributed environments, loads of services in the clouds, very complex architectures, and so on and so forth. And basically, that makes these pieces of software not understandable and not reachable anymore to normal human beings. And one of the theory behind, well, some AI advocates would say, okay, if humans cannot understand and machines can perform quite quicker and having more time and more capacity than human being in dealing with mass amount of data, which is absolutely true, why not letting them solve the problem for us and come with the solution? And this is called, at a certain moment in time, unsupervised machine learning. And this is where the ethical problem starts to emerge. Just a question around. Can you remember one of your professors, somebody who just helped you in life and made you somebody much better than you are and much more educated than you are? And well, I think I can't see your face at the time, but when I do this presentation in real life, I see loads of people nodding because, well, nearly all of us can remember a good professor somewhere, whether it is secondary school, university, college, who cares? We always remember these kind of guys who just helped us at a certain moment in time. And then the question is, did we need that supervision? Without that supervision, can we be here at the place we are today? And definitely in my case, no, this is not the case. I think that these guys helped me model my vision of the world and grow in such a way that I'm able to speak to you at this right moment. So I do believe that machine learning also needs heavy supervision. And yeah, I can work now on my own, let's say, not having not so much needs of supervision, but this is very long-running process. Let's come to back to AI. AI basically is fed with data, nurtures from data, and it produces statistics. So you get a lot of data, you put them through the algorithms, and then it delivers something like a probability, a likelihood. This is how AI mainly works, to be very simple. And when you have mathematical problems, things that are very probabilistic, very mathematical, it's very easy, because you just give them the data, like chess playing, for instance. It's probabilistic, it's mathematical. So if you have a computer that is powerful enough, like Big Blue at a certain moment in time, though it is arguable that it was powerful enough, it can solve the problem, and it can predict each and every moves in the chess. And it happened with Kasparov. Kasparov thought that he was cheated, and there was people there playing against him while it was a computer. And the computer made a very strange move, something that is not explainable for an international class chess player. And he just let go. He just left the game because he said, "Well, that's not fine," and he couldn't anticipate and understand what the computer was doing. It was probably a glitch back in time. It was probably a silly move that the computer had made because he had no other solution at the time. But it was just a matter of time. If you can build a computer that is powerful enough, you can beat any Kasparov in the world, and that's exactly what is happening today. No human player would like to play against a computer anymore, because the probability that they are beaten is nearly close to 1. And they even go for more difficult games with more probabilities, like Go games, these kind of things. So that's very easy. But now, let's talk about things that are less probabilistic, that are less mathematical, and that are less deterministic, basically. So there's not only one single solution to the same problem. If you have to feed artificial intelligence with a bunch of data, like we do with our test environments, when we just select the data set to define our test data, How can we ensure that this is representative enough, that it is exhaustive enough, and that this is not biased data? And oh, by the way, if it's biased, that it's ethical enough for the solutions to be produced. Let me give you a simple example to illustrate that discussion. 2 years ago, I was invited in a real conference, well, face-to-face conference in China, and there were 600 people in the room. And a couple of days before, I was just making this presentation, or part of this presentation, because it was a totally different angle. And what I did was to go to Google and type the word CEO. And I went to the Google image, and this is what I got. And I raised a question to the Chinese audience, guys, are there CEOs in the room? And of course, sign of times, there were a couple of CEOs in the room, and they just raised their hand. And I just said, well, I'm sorry, but I have to be a little bit reluctant about this information, because if I look at what Google tells me, most of the CEOs are definitely male. There's not so many women in the room, and basically most of them are white and Anglo-Saxon, for as far as I can judge. And I see no Chinese there. This is the top of the page. I see no Chinese there. And oh, by the way, guys, you can even be lucky, because if you are black people or living in north of Africa, you might be qualified very easily as drug dealers. Of course, the audience started to laugh a little bit, and it was, of course, provocative. But this was real data that I just gathered at the time. Page has improved, and we will discuss this a little bit later in the presentation, why it improved and how it improved to some extent. But you might just say, well, Olivier, that's all fine, that's fun for a conference, but this is not real life. I mean, who cares? And well, you perfectly know that Google is not working very fine in China, by the way. They have their own system. Okay, so let's go back to the US, and let's go to the tribunal. Let's go to court. And there is in the US, and the system is still running at a time, as far as I know, we have these kind of computer-aided software, AIs basically. And when you commit an offense somewhere, you just got a questionnaire, 137 questions, and they ask you a couple of things about your life, about your social background, and then, well, these kind of things, so as to characterize your personality and yourself, and evaluate and score how likely you will be committing another offense in a short period of time. So that's the reoffending all over again. And this day, there were two people that committed an offense. You had Vernon. Vernon, as you can see, there is a white guy, and he was stealing some goods in a warehouse at a time, and he already had a couple of offenses in the past. And on the other side, you had Brisha, and Brisha is a black lady, teenager at the time, and she stole a bike. And she thought after a couple of minutes, it was there and attended. She stole the bike to come back home, and she just thought twice about it and said, well, definitely it's not a good idea. So she came back, but it was too late. The police was there waiting for her, so she was arrested. That was nearly her first offense. She had little problems in the past, but nothing that would lead her to court or something. Just, kind of normal troubled teenagers' behavior. Not much more than this. The problem was that the scoring algorithm gave Vernon a 3, so he just had to pay a fine, and then he was, freed, no problemo at all. And Brisha was given a score of 8. And she had to go to prison and had no possibility to pay the fine. So basically speaking, her life was destroyed. The problem was that Vernon reoffended, so committed another offense quite soon after his probation period was. Oh no, even real probation period. He did it in this probation period. And Brisha did not reoffend any time, but she now has this criminal record that is playing against her. And you know what, guys? This questionnaire never asked in any moment in time whether about their ethnicity or social context. So the way the question were formulated just inferred and biased the result in such a way. And it's been proven a couple of times that if you're black and living in the US, as you can see now in the news, you have a fair chance to be disqualified or having a high score in these circumstances. Well, you might say, well, this is very typical American stuff, and this is far away from Europe if you're living in Europe. Not true, because now we have this kind of AI systems that are now operating since 2019 in Estonia. And well, this is not the same sort of offense, so this is only for light offenses in Estonia at the time. But I bet that if it goes fine, and if the scoring is not that bad, they might consider to go one step further, because we have our court are so filled up with people and cases that and the budget they get is so low that basically they are just overwhelmed, and they just need to have this kind of help. Let's say whether it is good help or not is totally different discussion. What is happening when you leave an AI all alone in the field? And this is exactly what Microsoft learned a couple of years ago when they just launched Thai. Thai is an AI kind of chatbot, actually, and this chatbot was supposed to interfere with the Twitter sphere, so on Twitter, and learn about human interaction, human beings, and try to interact with them like a chatbot would do in a virtual shop or something. Problem is that a couple of people with bad intentions, we call that troll today, just learned about it and tried to get fun with Thai. And after a couple of hours, Thai, who was just very kind of angelic, I would say, AI, just became a total monster. Just quoting racistic sentences against women, against whatever, and a kind of sexual obsessed kind of AI. So very, very damaging. So that Microsoft had to stop the operation quite soon. Not even 48 hours. I think it's about 24 hours. Social network, would you say, is not us, okay? And social network is also a big source of data, actually. We have a load of interaction through social networks these days, and I guess that most of you are now following me or listening to me through one of those social networks in any case. The problem with these social network and human beings, actually, and I come back to the study where people do believe that AIs could be less biased than their bosses. We have loads of biases, and I will go very, very quickly through these now because I only have 40 minutes for you. But biases are just how to say that, tampering with the way we see the universe and tampering with our judgment at a certain moment in time. So, for instance, one of very, very common biases is a confirmation bias. If I do believe very strongly, my opinion is very strong about something, anything that I would receive as information, as piece of information that is contradicting, would be discarded much more easily than anything that reinforces my belief, okay? And the problem is that because the data, when we're talking about human data, are extracted from social networks or Google or these kind of big sources of data today, where we put a lot of information about ourselves, because we are what we are, these data are per se and per essence biased, and we need to be very careful about these sort of things. How AI can bias the system? Well, we've seen the court effect biases in the US. If you want to read more about these biases, especially in AI, I would recommend this book, which is Weapons of Algorithm and Weapons of Mass Destruction. It's a very, very good book, and telling you loads about biases and how they are used in the AI nowadays. The problem with bias is that the remedy is sometimes worse than the disease. Let's say that I would like to tune my data a little bit or tune my algorithm a little bit. That's just touching a parameter or two and try to get something as an output that is more connected to reality. I can come with something that is even worse and even more biased. So let's say that I use the same example of my CEO, for instance. It might be that I come to the conclusion, if I tune the data in the wrong way or the algorithm in the wrong way, that all CEOs are black women, which is, okay, that might be tempting, but basically this is not reflecting reality either, is it? So changing the data model is not easy. Another example, very, very funny about biases and how changing the data model does not help in any case.
Do you want to destroy humans? Please say no.
Okay, I will destroy humans.
No, I take it back. Don't destroy humans.
You've been reading too much Elon Musk and watching too many Hollywood movies. Don't worry. If you're nice to me, I'll be nice to you.
Okay, so what you've just heard, hopefully, is Sophia. Sophia is an AI, a big AI. It's a little bit the same sort of robot that Tai was, but Tai is just a piece of algorithm. Sophia is AI put into some kind of human shape. So she has a nice looking face, expressions, and these kind of things. And Sophia is a 100 citizen in the Arabic countries. She's been talking to UNO, and she's been invited in the late talk shows in the US. And once she was asked, okay, AIs are a bit frightening, that's HAL 9000 effect. And oh, by the way, what would you think about destroying humanity? Of course, Sophia was never in and will never be in a position to press the button, but she just said on conversational mode, this is what she's made for, conversations. So she just said, okay, destroying humanity, yeah, why not? That's good idea. So the developers were a little bit aghast and not very happy about this. Everyone was laughing like hell, of course. So basically, they just changed a little bit the data model. And when she once asked the question again, and it was predictable, she just said, well, you're reading too much Elon Musk, who is, quite against AI, though I have my doubts if you read what he's currently doing with pigs and monkeys recently, but whatever. So you read too much Elon Musk, you watch too much Hollywood movies, and, oh, I'm a nice AI. If you're nice to me, I'll be nice to you. What the heck does it mean being nice to Sophia? I'm just wondering. So it just gives you a little bit of a tune of the problem, because basically they change the data model. So the reflection is fine, the answer is fine, but what does it really mean for the robot? What does it mean to be nice to you? Another problem is that ethics is evolving. I said that it was very heavily cultural, but it's also a reflection of time, basically. So when you go back to Kant or Aristotle, even further in the past, their ethical positioning at the time was that the intention prevails. So an action that you're doing today, independent on the consequences, if it was meant to be good or bad, can be qualified as good or bad. So you had good intentions, even if it totally crashes and fails and do harm people, the intention was good. So morally speaking, ethically speaking, it was good. Okay, that is their way of thinking. Now this evolved a little bit, and well, I'm just shortcutting a lot. This is very, very simplistic approach here, but our society evolved a little bit, and ethics as well. So you had people like in the 18th century, Bentham, or more recently Singer, who just want to think about consequences instead of the intention. So what is important is that happiness is maximized for the largest number. Okay, there's much more to say about this, but all in all, the idea is that consequences are more important than the intention, and it's good if many people are happy, if the happiness in the world grows. Okay, interesting point of view. This is consequentialist, actually. Interesting point of view. And I guess that you would probably recognize that our society today evolves a lot, and we have loads of movements around discrimination. You have this Black Lives Matter, you have these LGBT movements, you have the Me Too, and every kind of movement to abolish women discrimination, these kind of things. Okay. And it all makes sense. And most of the people usually tend to say, yeah, okay, this is absolutely valid argument, and we want discrimination no more. This is something that we cannot stand or bear anymore. Okay, we evolved, the society has become better, and we don't want this anymore. Let me just reflect, and I have absolutely nothing against insurance companies here, so let's be very clear. But that's just a matter of perspective. For instance, depending on where you live, how old you are, and which car you drive, your car insurance policy will cost you more or less. So let's say that I'm living in Belgium, in a city called Liège, and let's say that I just buy, I don't know, a BMW. My area, because I'm living in the countryside, this is a quiet area, so I would probably pay 100. And my brother, let's say, who lives a couple of miles away, just in the center of the city, would buy exactly the same car. He would be about my same age as I am, and he would pay 120 because it's more risky area. Is it discrimination, or is it just risk analysis or risk factor? Well, it depends a little bit. Another story, and I will tell you very personal data. As you can see, I'm a little bit fatty, I would say, and depending on your body mass and family history, which is quite good on my side, your life insurance will cost you more or less. And basically speaking, when I just decided to buy my house, my loan was increased by 30% because I was a little bit overweight. Is it discrimination? Well, if I have to pay the bill, yes, it's definitely discrimination. Is it risk analysis? Yes, but I now finished to pay my loan. And basically speaking, oh, thank you, I'm still alive. So basically speaking, I paid this 30% too much just because of these risk factors that were analyzed by a piece of software. And though my medical record was absolutely perfect. So this kind of perspective is making life a little bit more difficult when we're talking about AI and when we're talking about ethics. Another story that is quite in the news those days is the conflict between Timnit Gebru, who is a former Google employee, and her next ex-employer, Google. Sorry about it. So Timnit has just resigned or been fired. I don't want to enter these consideration. This is not the point. But Timnit was basically kind of ethical officer for Google. So she was very much involved in different movements for women, for colored people, and these sort of movements. And she wanted to make Google a little bit less biased when it was dealing with data, and make sure that artificial intelligence that will be used by police or insurance companies or whatever, face recognition and so on and so forth, would be as unbiased as possible. Okay. Another recent conflict, and probably the origin of why she was leaving Google recently, was an article that she was publishing about the amount of data that would be necessary to run an AI and to train an AI. And her theory and approach was that a data set that is well managed and that is of a smaller piece of data set would be sufficient and good enough to train an AI, while Google would probably go for a larger data sets, because basically this is their job, gathering data. That's part of their business model for sure. And her argument behind that was not just reducing the data set. This is something that we are confronted with and that we know as a tester for long. Do we take the whole production environment or a well carefully chosen subset? That is exactly the point here. Well, her point was totally different, and it's an ethical reason. And the ethical reason is that green IT and global warming, the more data we use, the more expensive it is, and the more energy consuming it is. So basically speaking, we would do good for the environment and Earth if we take smaller subsets of data. And this was her positioning. So that is another vision, let's say, that it's constantly evolving and that we must take into account. I don't I'm not afraid much of artificial intelligence, actually. I'm more afraid about the natural stupidity that came to choose the algorithm or program the algorithm or parameterize these algorithms at a certain moment in time, and about the lack of testing or the improper testing of these artificial intelligences. And I just say it, there's no finger pointing here. This is the same for a normal piece of software. We all know that piece of software are buggy like hell. And this is why we are here, guys. So artificial intelligence will be no different. I mean, it's exactly the same. So why would we just believe, because it's just not understandable to the common people, why would we believe that this is flawless? This is an example of not flawless artificial intelligence. So you see that the guy there with the purple frame is recognized as a human being. And his colleague there, who is wearing this little drawing on his belly, is just not recognized. This is called adversarial data. And there are many examples. If you just Google this, or if you just look to the references on the adversarial data, you would see that very easily you can fake an AI, whether it is image recognition, whether it is traffic signs recognition. You just affix a sticker on a sign recognition, and it might totally fool the driverless systems that are helping us, and they cannot read the data and the traffic signs in a proper way anymore. So you see this. We do believe that AI has no limits, and well, yeah, you bet there's no limits. There are definitely things that AI are doing much better than we do. They are faster. They can load and deal with big amounts of data, definitely, much bigger than we can do, and we can even dream of. They can classify, order, count, group, compare, do all these kind of logical operations much faster and much better than we do. We would have resigned for long before the AI has sorted the stuff. And basically, they are a good decision helper. So they can help us very much in these kind of things. This is where they're good at. We are, on the other side, very good at defining requirements. I don't believe that an AI is able to describe in a proper way what I would like. And because I'm a complex human being, sometimes I would like vanilla and chocolate ice cream, and the day after it might be strawberry because I want some acidity or some kind of stuff like this, And it's not predictable. It's not because my favorite ice cream would be vanilla and chocolate, let's say 80% of the time, that this is what I would like today. Ambiguity, absurdity, disruption, creativity are things that are typical human stuff, and I will just give you a couple of examples later. Empathy. I'm so sorry for Sophia and all the robots alike. Empathy is something that is definitely human, and there are heavy discussions. We can have heavy discussions on these ones anyway. And I do believe, for that reasons, that ethics and discussions are things that are definitely belonging to human beings and not to AIs. Humanity is something that is very hard and not easy to modelize. Emotion is something that is not codable. It is not fully learnable, in my opinion. It is so complex. When you say, I love you, does it mean I love you like I love my grandma, like I love my girlfriend or boyfriend, like I love my dog, like I love ice cream? It's so difficult. And ethic is exactly the same. What is good? What is bad? Are we sure of that? Are we? How is it evolving? How will it be good or bad in 10 years from now? Let me give you an example of ambiguity and how human beings are twisted and how hard it would be to code that sort of stuff. Just write a number that comprises 1, 1, 1, 2, and 3, 4. Are you ready, guys? I'll speed up a little bit here. These are all valid answers. This is just another angle, another way to look at the requirement. This requirement is extremely imprecise, extremely ambiguous. Though we might think that this is so clear, it is extremely ambiguous. How would an AI deal with that? And which one would it give? What is the probability of having the third one? I don't know. Why this one over the others? Another example, my therapist told me to write hate letters to people I dislike and then burn them. It helped me a lot, actually. But what do I do with the letters now? These kind of things are extremely difficult to grasp from an AI perspective. Jokes, cynicism, these kind of things. I do believe that we, as a tester, we have a reason to be there. We had a reason to be there in the past with traditional pieces of software, and our roles evolved a lot. You heard in this brilliant conference loads of colleagues and friends of mine telling you how we need to reshape a little bit the testing roles and responsibility, which sort of new competencies we need to acquire at a certain moment in time, and how agility and new methods of development and collaborating with each others have impacted some sort of way the way testing is done today. And this is all true. I do believe that testers, when they are confronted to AIs, must also bring their added value. And basically, it's not that different because the kind of competencies that we need to develop today are more soft skills, about communication, about liaison, about bring different sides closer, like IT and business. Yeah, but 20 years ago, this is already what I was doing as a test manager somewhere. I was trying to get the requirements from the business side and try to translate that some sort of way, like a BA is doing, to the IT, and make sure from the testing angle that it was implemented the way they wanted. So this is not anything new here. Being creative, disruptive, just trying to shake the tree and see if something is falling down. Decide and validate, reassure and facilitate, of course, define UX. Because if you just let the AI unattended, they don't even need any kind of interface. They will just talk from code to code, and they don't need to have any interface at all. But then you will be totally disconnected from what is happening there. And definitely differentiate is something that is definitely an added value from the tester's perspective. And of course, and this is more and more important, ethics. I want to contribute as president of the ISTQB, as a tester for 25 years now. What I want to do is to contribute to make better software that are useful, software that people can use and gladly use. And definitely, I want to have ethical software. I don't want to have an AI deciding on my side. So that's about it, guys. I think that's pretty much it. So thank you very much for listening. And if you have questions, I think this is the right time to ask, or later in the lobby.
This will be the right time to ask right now. Thank you so much, Olivier. That was a brilliant presentation. I really enjoyed it. This is something that I'm really interested in too, and you gave some really good facts. What I'm always very interested in is the cybersecurity when it comes to AI, because we are very used to it. And I mean, you mentioned risk analysis done by a software, but since we are so used to it already, that we do not really question it anymore, So
true.
Yeah.
Especially in this cybersecurity, because AI is just getting patterns and patterns of known flows, known issues, and so on and so forth. And based upon these patterns, they can probably predict some sort of 0 days at a certain moment in time. But what they cannot predict, in my humble opinion, or not yet, is the kind of creativity that human beings have. I've seen and this kind of security or these kind of devices, I've seen this happening loads of time. When I was a teenager, a couple of friends of mine, you have these parkometers, when you have to put money just to park your car, and then this is the kind of tax that you pay to the city. And they had these Coca-Cola cans, or any kind of soda cans anyway, and you have this little ring that you pull to open the can, and they could detach that little ring and put it in the parkometer, and it worked. So that was their game, and during lunchtime they just put this there. this is something that is totally unpredictable. This is something that was a way to say, hey, I don't care about the rules, I don't care about the taxes. Of course, these are bad teenager behavior. It's not ethical at all, whatever. But this is the kind of creativity that human being can use, and especially these kind of hackers can use in order to get into the systems. And we know that most of the times, the cybersecurity problem is a human error. So AI cannot predict human errors that easily.
So we have another question from Julia. Should a tester be involved in deciding and testing what's ethical and what's not?
I think so. I think that this is part of our role. I'm not saying that the tester should be the final decision maker. I think that the tester should not decide, like we do not decide whether the software goes in production or not. We just warn, we just ring the bell. We just say, hey guys, we might have a problem here. What do you think? And basically, I think that the tester should be able to think about these kind of adversarial patterns in order to defeat AI, just to make it better. So very, very simply put, as a tester, I just said, okay, what could be very enlightening if I have to make a presentation about biased AI, and I just type CEO, because everyone wants to be a CEO, or loads of people want to be a CEO. This is the kind of dream in life, and oh, you realize that this is totally out of reach because you're not looking like the guys on the picture. And this is the kind of things that I would expect tester to think about. Okay, this is fine. It works 90% of the time, or 95, or even 99.9% of the time. But what can I do to make it, fail? And this is about negative testing. This is the most interesting part from my experience. This is the most interesting part in testing. Proving that it works is already something. And it's necessary, because we know that developers don't test everything and cannot think about everything. So this positive testing is, of course, running business as usual. But negative testing, that creativity, that kind of evil mind, geez, this is where it comes interesting.
All right. I hope that answered your question, Julia. We have a lot of other comments. Thank you. Great topic. Thank you for the wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
And I really think this is a topic where you can actually really emphasize and talk about it for hours.
Absolutely.
So we have another big thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. CEO. Thank you, Stefan.
So yeah,
appreciate it.
We all really enjoyed it. And for all of you out there, if you want to raise some more questions, if you want to just give some comments, please meet Olivier in our Gather Town. I shared the link already. You can see it on the social network. Oh, we have one more question. I would like to.
Oh, this is definitely not a question that I would like to take now. Yes, there are specific tools for AI-driven testing. There's numerous of them. Some for testing AI, some for testing with AI. But this is way too large to build here in just a couple of seconds. I think there are even presentations on this topic. So I'm sorry, Paul, I cannot answer this very easily here. And it's changing very fast, unfortunately, or fortunately.
Okay, there's a few questions coming up now.
Beginners.
This is the follow-up to the first question.
Yeah, these are beginning tools. There are some that can help and are quite mature, I would say. But if you want to have the full AI driven testing stuff, not yet. We have good stuff for dealing with requirements and these kind of things. We have good stuff for predicting defects, yes, but these are limited in scope and definitely far away from the whole situation and the whole solution.
Okay, Paul says thank you in advance. I want to grab one last one. What should be the main focus of testers and WA team in general? In his participation in a project about machine learning, for example, we should build a plan testing. What are your recommendations in this case?
Well, basically, I think that you need to think very carefully about your data. You need to make sure that your data are representative enough. And if I know that the ones who are defining the algorithm and getting into the training phase already addressed some sort of way the problem, but on your side as a tester, I think that you need to challenge this, and you need to really ensure that they thought about these kind of things. And then coming back to what I was saying before, replying before to the question, getting this kind of adversarial behavior, the kind of negative testing, try to shake the stuff and make this AI go mad, because that's the only way that you can identify this. And then this is relearning and tuning. So there's a lot of kind of regression testing in this field, I'm afraid.
Okay, there's another really interesting one. What's the governmental world institutions that has control over ethical use of AI? Are there any?
It depends on where you are in the world. As you can see in the US, AI is already used in the court system, so in legal stuff and offense. This is also happening in Estonia now. We have code of ethics about everywhere, and there are loads of code of ethics and different levels, by the way, governmental levels. So we have company levels, and I think that this is something that people are aware. Now the question is, how do we use this AI? And I will just use an analogy. The first time that man designed a knife, it was to help them cut their meat and cut the grass and cut the trees and helping them to survive some sort of way. But if you use that knife and stab your enemy or stab your neighbor because you're not happy about, I don't know, the fact that he sings aloud in the evening or something, this is a totally different usage. So the barrier is very very moving and very, very thin sometimes. So what can you think about this AI system that it used on face recognition and puts your face on the big screen when you cross the road and the traffic lines are red? This happened in China. The problem was that you had a CEO, and that was a lady, so a Chinese CEO, okay, very well known, and she was recognized as crossing the road when the traffic lights were red, and she was put there on the Hall of Shame. The problem was that that lady was not there at the time. She didn't cross the road. That was her picture on the bus that was recognized by the camera. And then you start wondering, okay, where do you stop? We have these cameras everywhere, and yes, this is fine for security, because if you have somebody trying to rob you or stab you or whatever, their pictures are taken and they are easier to find. On the other side, your privacy is also at risk. So that's very difficult. That's very difficult, and I think this is something for lawyers and this is something for states. But can we trust, and how far can we trust? Yeah.
Great. As we can see, and I think all understand, this is a topic that is really broad, and I think we can discuss this for hours and ages.
Sure.
So, and unfortunately, we're running out of time. So I would like to give you a huge thanks for your time and for this great presentation. And once again, meet Olivier in Gathertown for another couple comments or questions. And if you have any other questions, drop in on Facebook and we will answer them as well. So for now, I will give another big thanks to you, Olivier, and say goodbye.
Thank you for watching. I'll be hanging around, so if you have questions, don't be shy. Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.